The new season of The Umbrella Academy is not good. Here's why. The Umbrella Academy has always towed the line between comedy and drama, but it never felt like it was going overboard. Until now. Season 3 feels like the most serious and the most ridiculous season, but it lacks the reason and coherence to back it up. This season sees the series slip into adolescent edge and reasonless goofiness without the consistent quality of writing that made the past seasons good. They kill more characters, yet they do it without making the audience care and in such a predictable pattern that it isn't even surprising. The Hotel Obsidian creates a weird environment for hardly any purpose, yet none of the odd characters actually mean anything in the plot. The plot was stupid, and while it did answer some overarching lore questions, it did not stop the actual happenings from being terribly done. Okay, so let's talk about the plot. Three major problems exist within the plot: its overall low quality, lack of actual character involvement, and its predictability. While some people do complain about the fact that it was another apocalypse, I see that more as the conceit of the show rather than a seasonal plot. At the end of Season 2, I thought that Season 3 had the ability to be the best season of the Umbrella Academy. I thought that they would explore the differences between the Academy and examine yet another way that they were failures. I also thought that they would examine how much they could have done in their lives if they hadn't grown up in the Umbrella Academy. However, all of this is dumped in favor of a dumb apocalypse storyline that only makes half sense. The explanation of the grandfather paradox doesn't make much sense at all. If that could happen, wouldn't the paradox have been caused in the first episode of Season 2 as Five goes back in time to stop an apocalypse that never happens? Assuming that the grandfather paradox does make sense, the writers then decide to systematically kill all of the Sparrow Academy, leaving no time to get attached and no shock value after a consistent pattern is established. Nothing is ever explored with them, and their deaths mean almost nothing to the story. In fact, nothing means anything to the story. The only character that actually matters is Reginald Hargreaves, who has the only plot that actually matters in the story. None of the actual Umbrella Academy do anything of note besides have poorly written dialogue. In the end, Reginald chooses to betray Klaus for almost no reason, as he doesn't know much of Klaus's original timeline and has only seen Klaus being useful. His betrayal is not well thought out and is only put in for a cheap shock. The last episode spends half the episode on a fight scene in a transforming hotel that mean literally nothing to the story. It turns out that the symbol was just on the lobby floor, making the entire episode pointless. Side note, I thought the tattoo 5 had gotten earlier was going to turn out to be the key, as it was the correct symbol, but that would have been actually a good plot point. The final part of the episode answers a lot of overarching lore questions, which I thought was good, but is still hurt by Allison's terrible plotline, but I'll get to that later. The ending twist is fine, but this season severely diminishes my hope for the next. I think one of the biggest problems is the fact that it was so predictable. I never felt that anyone was in danger of dying, even after Luther actually died. In the end, nobody sustained as much as an injury, proving my lack of fear justified. While I wouldn't exactly call what the season did to characters butchering, it certainly did not improve any of the characters like the previous seasons. All of the characters certainly had problems, so here they are from what I consider to be the best characters to worst characters this season. I think that overall, Diego was the best this season. I really enjoyed his plotline with Stan and the reveal that it wasn't his kid, but I still felt like him having a child with Lila got a little weird and forced. Him constantly trying to keep her out of harm's way was fine at first, but it got repetitive and didn't make too much sense. I get that he was trying to protect the child, but it still gets annoying. He also suffers from the overall quality drop. A lot of his one-liners and dialogue is just worse than previous, but I still really enjoyed him this season. Lila is one of the only characters which has a semblance of a character arc this season. It deals with her feelings of inadequacy when it comes to being a mother, and furthers her relationship with Diego. While I do feel like this plotline drags a little and gets repetitive, at least they actually did something with her. While some might find it odd that I am including Reginald Hargreaves in this list, he plays such a big role in this season I feel it would be impossible to leave him out. I found Reginald Hargreaves absolutely hilarious this season. While his plotline with Klaus is not good and a lot of his dialogue is basic, His actor does a great job at playing an overly energized Hargreaves. He also is the only person who actually matters to the plot this season, so that's a plus. While I don't feel like they did a very good job with his character this season, I really enjoyed watching him. I am lumping these two together because they both fall into the same category. They both do almost nothing and are completely irrelevant. Now, the plotline with Harlan may seem important, but if you look at it from the perspective of the entire season, only the last few episodes matter. While the show does deal with Victor's guilt over leaving Sissy, there is no conclusion to that arc, as Harlan is killed by Allison, which Victor is not even that mad about. 5 has about one episode where he does anything, in which he meets his future self and learns information that is completely irrelevant and will never actually be brought up again. 5 is known to be the smart one that pushes the plot forward, but he does absolutely nothing. However, Aidan Gallagher still puts on a fantastic performance despite his lack of screen time. Overall, both characters are entirely inoffensive, and I was sad that they didn't get more to do. First off, I love Klaus. He was great in the first 2 seasons, mostly due in part to the excellent performance by Robert Sheehan. However, his plotline this season is used mostly as a plot device. First, he investigates his mother and realizes she died, which only serves to give the audience that information. The reasoning is nonsensical. He goes to ask why she sold him off, but she didn't sell him off in that universe, and she raised her own Klaus as far as he knows. He has no reason to do that now, as he wasn't going to do it in the original timeline, so it comes off as completely contrived. Secondly, he comes back and spends the rest of the season with Reginald Hargreaves. He is illogically inconsistent with helping Hargreaves, and even asks him to essentially put him through the torture of his childhood, which completely goes against his character. Even his performance is flatter than that of the previous seasons, which I can say because I watched them back to back, although it could be due in part to the material he was given. Obviously, Ben is far worse than the original Ben. He is meant to be. However, the new Ben is a terrible character. Justin Min gives a mediocre performance over a bad script, one may have caused the other, creating a far less likable version of Ben. He is unnecessarily adverse to everything everyone says and shares absolutely no traits with the original Ben. He is just worse and exists solely to contradict everything everyone else says. When he hangs out with Klaus at the wedding, Klaus describes Ben in a totally wrong way and then gets him drunk and acts like that is what the original Ben was like. Everything they did with Ben is like a slap in the face to the original Ben, and it's like the writers didn't even try. Also, did Ben have sex with Klaus? And why? They absolutely murdered Luther as a character this season. For some reason, he looks less monkey, which I don't get, plus they actually murdered him, only to bring him back 5 minutes later. Luther's character this season can be described quite simply as a himbo. He is just dumb, doesn't know what's going on, and charms Sloane. He has no character. Yes, Luther is dumb, but he isn't only dumb and nothing else. You can hardly even call him a character this season. Honorable mention. She was incredibly annoying and was completely irrelevant. Who actually programmed her to think that a black hole was God? It makes no sense, it is horribly stupid, and so annoying and unfunny. Allison got it the worst this season. It really makes me wonder, do the writers want you to hate Allison? Do they have some sort of vendetta against her? Allison has always been motivated by the one she loves, but she has always been seen to take care of her family more than most of the others in the show. Family is important to her, and she is always trying to be the reasonable one. However, when she arrives to the future and Claire doesn't exist, she goes completely insane. Like, actually insane. She adopts the personality of an edgy 14-year-old and stops caring about everyone around her. She blames everyone else, constantly hurts everyone else, and yet everyone around her treats her like she has the right to do this. She sexually assaults Luther, almost raping him, and then acts like she was in the right. What's worse, the writers believe she is in the right. Luther completely ignores the horrible acts she just committed and acts like it's fine. She constantly gets away with atrocity after atrocity while acting in the most annoyingly self-righteous and baseline nihilistic way possible. Obviously, even if she had been born, Claire still wouldn't exist because the timeline had changed. She didn't shut down before when she was away from her daughter for a year and knew she would never see her again, but just decides that she wants to act like the worst person possible for almost no reason. People don't drop their entire personalities and values when they get sad, but Allison does. In the end, she joins up with Reginald and does literally nothing for the plan, only to kill him, resolving none of her terrible character arc that season, and then goes through with the plan anyways. Why was she necessary? No idea. She didn't rumor anyone. Her character arc was horrible and was not resolved, as the moment that was supposed to resolve it, where she killed Reginald, does not matter, as she just finishes his plan anyways. This is how you butcher a character. The season was bad. The plot was nonsensical, less jokes landed, and the writing was basic. I think that the show could easily be redeemed in a season 4, and I hope it gets another season, as this season could be a fluke, and I don't want a good show like this to end on such a sorry note. Overall, 4 out of 10.